time is now 7:32 p.m. And I'd like to call to order the Downers Grove Public Library Board of Library Trustees, August 24th, 2022 meeting. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will now read the Downers Grove Public Library land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the Downers Grove Public Library sits on the unceded, traditional, and ancestral homelands of Native peoples. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the indigenous peoples who have been caretakers of the land throughout generations, past and present. We invite you to learn more about the genocide and forced displacement by non-Native settlers and the ongoing injustices against Native peoples. Caitlin, can you proceed with roll call?
Yes. Trustee Doherty. Here. Trustee Humphries.
Here.
Trustee Cynthia. Here. Trustee Nienberg.
Here.
President Kagami.
Here. All right. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I'd like to welcome our visitors to our meeting. Thank you so much for your interest in the library. All right. Item 4A, the approval of the July 27th minutes. Do we have any trustee comments or questions?
I have a comment. In section 8, new business, my name is spelled wrong.
Oh, no.
Oh, ouch.
And that, right there in the
Yep, I see it.
At least we know you better.
Any other comments or questions, or do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the amendments as amended.
Do we have a second? Second. All right. We can proceed with a voice vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? And any abstentions? All right. The approval of the July 27th minutes with the amendment has been approved. Item 5A, July 2022 financial report.
All right. We have financial reports, and they are as accurate as we believe them to be accurate. We are still struggling through with the Munis software and with the reporting, and the report that we had found that we were very hopeful would make the whole process a little easier was missing different pieces of information. So from the looks of things, we're going to have to take the two reports in common delineated format and put them together and do a little magic to make the reports as you have seen them. Yeah, the situation with Munis is still ongoing.
So I'm sure the village is just as frustrated as you are over this. Who's accountable for this? Is there an implementation firm? Is there a software company?
There's a software company, and it is my understanding that the village had taken on the implementation primarily with a train-the-trainer model, and it is Jenny Rizzo, who is the emergency management director. Is that her exact title? Close enough. Who is spearheading this project on their behalf.
So they don't have an external integrator working with them?
Which seems to be some of the problem. They do have people at the software company that are helping them, but not, it doesn't sound like there's anyone who's dedicated and direct.
They are using some of the same staff from the software company, and because I've sat in on some of the production meetings where we're actually building it from scratch and putting in all of the settings and all of the details and the variances, and it's a lot of they're struggling too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That being said, we are 58.3% through the year as of the financials that you have in your packet. As you can see, our revenue is just over 56% and our expenditures are also just over 56%. You will probably notice that expenditures jumped a little this month over last. There are a couple reasons for that. Number one, July was a 3 payroll month. Number two, that 5870, the capital equipment over $20,000, that is that reclassification of the tables that we had paid half of that in fiscal year 2021, but the tables were not received and the second half paid till 2022, and the auditor decided that needed to be reclassed into all of that expense needed to be reclassed into the 2022 budget. So it is there now. And then also in 5770, the capital equipment under $20,000, I just want to draw your attention to that, to know that that will be going over as well. And that is primarily due to the federal and state grants that we got for our laptop kits and our Wi-Fi network improvements. As a matter of fact, you will see in your invoices of note the large invoice from IT Savvy. And that's one of those grant expenses that you will see in there. And then if you have any other questions.
What was the grant against that expenditure? Is it one for one? Is it like a reimbursement situation?
Yes.
Okay.
Jen, would you like to speak to the grant a little bit?
Sure. We got 2 grants. One was a federal grant, one was a state grant. This one is going to be applied to the state grant expenditures. The state grant was funded in full, and the federal grant is dispersed as we spend money.
Out of the capital replacement fund, I think there was a payment to the architecture. This is just for my own understanding. So the capital replacement fund, there can be, it doesn't have to be capital expenditures, it can be expenses.
Right, it's any expense related to that
Okay.
capital project. So that does include our construction management firm, the architect,
Yeah.
any of those kinds of services as well.
Are those expenses capitalized from an accounting standpoint, a tax standpoint, or are they expenses, like they're just straight up expenses?
That would be a question for the village's financial.
I believe they classify them differently because as they begin their audit every year, I have to send them documentation of all of our
Okay.
capital expenses and
Right.
explain, the details of them.
Yeah, okay. And one more question about that. Was that expense to issue the bids? Is
Yes,
what
that was the bid stuff.
Final bid package. It was a large U.S. postal expense.
Yes, we pay in large chunks into our account with the postmaster for our nonprofit postage account.
Okay, let me just
So-
call off that.
Yeah. So we'll move 10,000 over to them at a time, and then each of the subsequent discoveries will get charged against that amount.
Got it. And then I guess that the EBSCO, that was the renewal of the annual subscription?
Yes, that's magazines, print magazines.
So, how often is that invoiced?
And
Annually.
There's some others that come in
Mhm.
piecemeal, but EBSCO's the big jobber that
Okay.
puts them all together.
The IT savvy expense, how's that room? Is it up to your exacting standards?
Well, we've got our fingers crossed that the changes, so far, we have not actually implemented the change. So the equipment is here, the project has not
Got it.
actually been done.
Any other questions or comments related to the financial reports?
I'll move to approve the financials as presented.
All right, so we have a motion to approve them as presented. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, so we have a second. Caitlin, can we proceed with the roll call?
Trustee Doherty.
Yes.
Trustee Humphries.
Yes.
Trustee Gutierrez.
Yes.
Trustee Nienberg.
Aye.
President Giovanni.
Yes. All right, financial matters have been approved. Item number 6, public comment on agenda items.
Hi, good evening. I'm Ed Paulak. Those of you who don't know me, I've been a homeowner here for 35 years, so paying taxes here for 35 years, I feel like I'm part owner as well as here. And so, I like to come here and see how you're taking care of my library for me. So last meeting, there was a lot of talk about the budget, and I had a little bit of concern with the way the budget's being approached. And the concern I've got is that it started off with the idea of looking at the levy and then backing into what the numbers look like from there. To me, that seems like an odd way of doing it. It's more like a kid getting an allowance and saying, well, I got my allowance, now what can I spend it on? I think it's important for the library to think like a business about this, and the board thinking like a business board. And if you're thinking like a business, what you want to do is look at the services you're providing, look at other services that you may want to provide that meet the needs of the community, and then budget from there accordingly so that you can meet those needs. And I looked, the gate count is up 10% from last year. So what that tells me is that people are coming to the library. And one of the things that was talked about was that this year we've seen high prices, and some people may be feeling a bit of a pinch financially. And those are all good points, but I think what's important for the board is to think holistically about the situation. And in that, what I mean is, the library is a bargain. And so if people are feeling like they're a little bit stretched on money, what they may do is say, well, instead of going out someplace, I'll go to one of the events at the library. Or they might say, I'd really like to improve my, get a promotion at work, or maybe find another job, maybe to go to one of the classes that are here that are for free, or they can certainly research and learn a lot of things from the services that are here. So there's lots of things that people can do, so I think what's important, if you really want to look at this holistically, is don't take away these bargains that people have got at the time when they're looking to try to find ways to economize. So another way of looking at this is there have been a lot of studies that show that communities with good libraries have higher property values. So the library actually ends up funding itself by raising the property values that are here. I suppose another way of looking at it, you could argue that, well, if we cut things and lowered property values, that would help lower inflation, but as a homeowner, I don't like that approach, and I've never talked to anybody who owns a home that wants their property values reduced. So I really wouldn't want to go down that path. So as one of the owners here, I would ask two things of the board. One, don't be short-sighted and make short-term cuts that are really hurting what the community wants. And the other, I know there was some mention last time about a strategic plan. I think, and it's later in the year, and I understand that there's a certain calendar, and this year's running by that calendar. I think in future years it would be beneficial to have the strategic plan first, get that wrapped up, and then roll into the budget process as a result of that. So you'd be doing that forward-looking, and the strategic plans can look ahead 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and say, where do we really want to take the library, and then budget to meet those kinds of things. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ed. Item Number 7, public comment on other library business.
Hi, my name is Marion Badkey, lived in Downers Grove, off and on since 1984, in the library for a amount. I've come to whine about your changes to the meeting room setup. I don't know if Caitlin remembers me
I
from
do.
Downers Grove
Yes.
Organic Garden
Yep.
Club. I'm a member of the Organic Garden Club, and probably at the moment acting president, and I've been making arrangements for meeting room setups for the last 4 or 5 years. And previously, we used to once a year talk with whoever was in charge, or send an email and say, here's the list of nights. We're usually the third Wednesday night of the month, like 6:30, 7 o'clock, and we meet here, the whole room. And, you know, we, maybe 8 months out of the year, we use the room, and we get a, you know, here's our list, and we get a thing, okay, we can't use it this month because the library is, you know, got a board meeting or something. So that was great. We knew for a year what dates we were available. We paid one check, and we were done. And the benefit of meeting here at the library is it's central. Most people know where it is. Parking's kind of iffy, but which everybody knows. But you know, like your AV equipment. If we need someone to set up and have a laptop and hook up whatever somebody brought with, one of our speakers, there's somebody there. If they want to show a DVD, they roll in the equipment. You know, so it's just very helpful. And it's also good because then other people, you know, members know, and people who don't, you know, aren't regular members know we're generally going to meet here. Well, now, it's like, you know, once a month, because we can do it 6 months out, but it's like every month I have to set reminders to get on. And it's 180 days ahead. You can't do it November 1st. It has to be November 20th because I'm looking for April 20th or whatever. And then we have to write a check every month. And so we can't count on anything. It's hard to project what kind of speakers we're going to have. I just think it's kind of ridiculous for a group that for, let's say, at least 10 years, more like 15, has been using this room either on a Wednesday night, used to be maybe Thursday night, you know, on a regular basis. And then sometimes we would get flipped at the last minute and they'd put us in the junior room. Like, that was okay. You know, we were still here. We didn't have to send out a notice to go someplace else. So I'm really irritated about this new system because it just makes all kinds of work for us. It's a hassle. Thought about switching to the Park District, but their thing is, like for January, February, March, I can't go to them until November 1st. Same thing. Like, come on. So there's just got to be a better way, to me, for people that are long-term, long-time users and that want to do it not month by month. And, you know, there's just got to be something else in my book. And I don't know what that is. You know, obviously the new system doesn't work. And then I find out it's not available from November to March because you're going to be using this for office space, which to me, I mean, other places, but anyways, you're making it more and more difficult to use the room, and we pay for it, not much, but still. So anyways, that's my whine for the night. I don't know if you've heard from other people. I mean, I've complained, I think I complained it early on. Caitlin might have been around, and Scott Anderson. And Scott's been great, you know, in terms of like, need to change the last minute of equipment. He suggested waiting to pay, you know, wait like 3 months to pay, and then we're only paying, you know, a check here or there. But then we have to remember which ones we paid, which ones we didn't, or he has to remember. So I think there's got to be some way to accommodate. And I was just talking with my neighbors, and they have the same issue with their quilt guild, I think. Same thing. Always used to come here. You know, and now it's like, why you have to come here when you have to like make it a big hassle? So that's my 2 cents for that.
All right, thank you so much. Do you have the circulation department presentation?
Hi, everybody. I'm Christine Lees. Can you hear me okay, or should I take off my mask? Is that?
I can hear you.
You can't hear me, or you can?
You can hear me.
You can't. I'm sorry. Here, let me step back. I'll just flip this off. Is that okay? Is that better? Thanks. I'm Christine Lees. I'm the manager of the circulation department. I'm really happy to come and speak with you today.
So every department gets to come and tell a little bit about the shining example of their department, and I'm thrilled to be able to do that today. I started in libraries in 1997. I'm dating myself, at Oak Park Public Library. Then I moved over to St. Charles Public Library, and now I'm here, and I'm thrilled to be here. I've been here almost 6 years, which seems crazy fast, and I'm thrilled to be here. So our department has about 40 staff. It fluctuates obviously as people leave for other opportunities, or I like to say that our department is the stepping stone for a lot of other positions within the library. I also like to say we must hire really well, because so many people in our department go on to other departments within the library. So that's always a win for us. I think anytime a person starts in circulation and moves to another place in the library, they have a great understanding of what happens behind the scenes. So it's really a wonderful thing. So as I said, we have about 40 staff in our department. It's myself and then my assistant manager, Sandy. Then we have 3 supervisors who take care of helping us with the clerks that are at the front desk, the shelving team that is out throughout the library shelving materials, and then an additional clerk, a supervisor rather, who helps with all of the behind the scenes things as well. We have about 17 clerks and 15 shelvers that handle the materials that come in and out of the library per year, which is just over 1.1 million materials a year. So we are a super busy library. Even after the pandemic, we have just bounced back gangbusters. As Ed, as you mentioned, our door counts are up. Everything is up. We are part of the SWAN Consortium, so we get deliveries every day. Well, I should say Monday through Friday. And that is about 10,000 items per month that come in to our library for patrons and go out to other libraries for other SPAWN patrons. So we are always, always jumping and hopping and wheeling carts in and out of the workroom, putting items through the sorter. Hopefully you've all seen our amazing sorter that makes our lives so much easier. And it's always just a really cool thing for our patrons too. One of my favorite things is when we have tours with kids, and you always know when a kid wants to come and see the sorter because their face is up against the glass, and and a lot of times it's actually the parents or grandparents that are with them that are really, really into the mechanics of the sorter and how it works. So it's one of our favorite things, but it's also not just a novelty. It really, really saves our department so much time and work, and so we're really thankful for it as well. We view our main goal in our department is patron service, internal and external patron service. We like to think of ourselves as the heart of the library. We're usually the first and last people that patrons see as they're entering or exiting the library. A lot of times we're the first experience. You always know if someone hasn't been in a library, especially since high school. They have that kind of deer in the headlight and maybe turning in semicircles as to where to go next. So we're the department that takes care of them. We get them library cards, we offer library tours, and we hope that we're just a really welcoming presence to all of our new patrons, existing patrons, and people that are maybe even just visiting. We get a lot of visitors as well. So our duties include, as I mentioned, we circulate materials, about 1.1 million. We also have all the holds that patrons place. That can be anywhere from 200 to 500 per day that we pull for the holds. We have a really, really active library patron that they love their holds. I sometimes think that after the kids go to bed, all of them, it's you, isn't it? Putting all the holds on, and it's really, it's awesome. So we get that report every morning. We're greeted with that report, and we go in and pull those items. So those items go on to either our hold shelf or our newest, really cool thing is our lockers. After or during the pandemic, we offered curbside service. And we realized that we really needed to offer another mode of delivery for patrons, whether they weren't comfortable yet coming back into our building, or if they're new schedules meant that they couldn't get here during the times that we're open. So right now we have 46 lockers. They are heavily used, and we are thrilled with how that they have the service they have been able to offer patrons. We have our very, very heavy users that really do enjoy the lockers. So thank you for approving that. The feedback has been phenomenal, overwhelmingly positive. So we register new patrons, somewhere between 200 and 300 new library cards every month. Again, it's so wonderful to see new faces coming in. And it's not just new members to Downers Grove, new residents to Downers Grove. It was like you set up my speech or something, but as people are trying to economize a bit and looking for different ways to get involved in their community, they're coming into the library. And they may have even been living in Downers Grove for a long period of time. And people are always amazed at the services that we offer. So one of my favorite things is getting a tour for the library and just, again, seeing you have video games, you have the Anything Emporiums, you can rent you can check out a sewing machine. It's really cool. So there's so many different things that we get to introduce people to that never knew what the library actually had. Let's see, we circulate some unique items as well. As I said, the Anything Emporiums, the umbrellas, which are always a hit when it's pouring rain, because I always forget my umbrella, so I'm always glad that I can check one out. And we have circulating bags as well, the tote bags and book club bags. So those are some of our more unique items. Our circulation duties are not just limited to what we do inside the building. We have a lot of outreach as well. We register people for library cards at the concerts in the park. We register them at the farmers market. Dave, you're going to be hopefully doing that for us, registering folks. And we also register people that don't have a fixed address that may be using our shelters here in Downers Grove. We are so thankful to partner with the PADS organization and are able to offer library cards to patrons that are using our shelters that are within the library district of Downers Grove. It has really, I think, been one of the most rewarding parts of my career is getting that up and running. So again, thank you for supporting that as well. We register kids at back to school night, and we also offer library cards to the businesses in Downers Grove. That's always fun as well, when sometimes people don't realize that they're entitled to a library card, having their business based in Downers Grove. So that's always a fun thing as well. One of the things that we have started, and I hope you've all seen, is the Rack at the Track. We have a book stand in the metro station, and it's a way for us to give a second life to some of the books that we have withdrawn from the collection. We label them and we put them weekly at the Rack at the Track for all of the people that are on Metro that may have forgotten something to read. We have received probably maybe a dozen notes of thanks over the couple of years that we've been doing this, just thanking people for having a pop-up book that kept the kids entertained on the Metro, or I'd forgotten my book and I didn't want to sit on the Metro for an hour without one, so thank you. So that's another thing that we do in our department. We also work with the PR department really heavily with a lot of different things, but not least of which you may have seen the yard signs that say proud to have a library card. Yes, that is one of the things that we work with PR as well. So being such a large department, communication is key in our department. Obviously, we're the biggest department here, and we have a lot of stuff going on. We're a really active, busy department. So at the start of every shift, we have a morning, afternoon, and evening shift. We have what's called an SOS meeting. So not sync our ship, but start of shift meeting. And we just really go over any big events that are happening during the day, who's in charge of the building, who the monitor is, and it's really just a point of contact so everyone is on the same page if there's a bigger event happening or anything that needs to be disseminated. We also started, probably maybe a couple of years ago now, a morning announcement. So we, before we open, we have some words of inspiration, sometimes a fun quote. We let the entire staff in the building know through the PA system who is in charge of the building, remind people to close their office doors, because sometimes you get, your the public doors or the doors to the public spaces are still open and propped open. And that's always really fun. We have some people that just make a really quick announcement, and then some people let us know every single national holiday that's going on that particular day. But it is very fun. We hold monthly circulation meetings as well, as most departments do, but that certainly does help. We also establish department goals, and the three things that we focus on are patron service, accuracy, and expanding our knowledge. And one thing that we did this past year that was really important to our department is we established a wellness goal in taking care of ourselves, because we have to take care of ourselves in order to take care of our patrons, both internally and externally. And that was something that has made such a huge difference in our decision-making in our department. Is really filtering things through that wellness goal lens, and giving ourselves permission to be our best selves, and when we're not being our best selves, to take a step back and just say, I need a minute, or I need an afternoon, and to really focus on wellness. It's been a hard road, it's working with the public can be really, really wonderful and really, really wonderfully challenging. So the wellness goal is something that's really important to us. Okay. A lot of our team members also serve on cross-departmental teams, such as the equity team, the service excellence team. The service excellence team I actually head up, and we just put some yoga mats and the Calm app in our wellness room. So people, when you're on your break, you can just go and stretch out. You could listen to the Calm app. It's really, I think, hopefully going to be a really beneficial thing. We also have a lot of fun in our department. It's really important to us to kind of have that balance of work and fun. So we do a lot of social things outside of the library. We've done axe throwing. It turns out a lot of my staff are really good at throwing an axe. I don't know what that means, but it's the truth. We've had a movie night in my backyard. We've all watched a movie collectively over GoToMeeting during the pandemic. We've had a pottery night, we've had a trivia night, and at our meeting next month, we're having a clothing exchange. So we're all bringing clothes in and swapping clothes. So best form of recycling, right? So I talked about our wellness goal, and I probably should end with our love language is food in my department. So there is always, always food. If you are ever hungry, come on in the back. I can guarantee you we'll have something sweet to satisfy you. But if you would like a tour around our department, if you'd ever want to work at the desk, if you ever want to see how this order works, please just stop by. We would love to welcome you in our department. So that's a kind of a little overview. Are there any questions that you might have? Did I talk really fast?
No, sorry.
Are there any emerging technologies that you have your eye on to increase efficiency and productivity and capability within the department?
Yeah, sure. So the lockers are really one of the biggest emerging technologies in library land right now. So I've had the opportunity to speak on a number of panels because a lot of the libraries are now looking at this. So I would say that is probably the biggest emerging technology for my department, at least. And the fact that we already have it is awesome. I suspect that going forward, we'll just want to continue to add on to lockers. So I think that, I don't know if that answers your question really, Bill, because we already have it, but we're so thankful, and we are really, I have people come visit monthly from other libraries to come take a look at it. So does that answer your question? Yep. Anything else?
I'm curious about how, whether and how the lockers changed kind of the way your team worked, and kind of, did it relieve time? Did it change your time? How did it change kind of the way you operate?
Sure. It definitely did not save time. But we were meeting patrons' needs who didn't want to come into the library, weren't comfortable coming into the library, by running out to their car if they called them. And that was just something that we committed to doing because we want everyone to feel safe and to still be able to use the library. So it cut back a little bit on that now we can have them come and use the locker 24/7, which is great. The actual processing of materials takes a little bit longer because you have to check it in a different computer. They talk to each other, but not super well. Yeah. And then you do have to like program it into the locker. It's no huge thing, but it certainly takes a little bit of time. So while it's not a staff saving activity, it is so worth every extra step we have to take because the patrons love it, and we do too. So so I hope that answers your question. Anything else? All right, well, stop by, get some treats anytime. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Ms.
Thank
It's
you.
really cool to see how it went from COVID, like curbside pickup, into the locker thing. Because I'm a fan of those. Like we did the pickup, the curbside pickup during the pandemic, and then I love the lockers. Like my kids are like, can I put in the barcode, or like, can I scan it? I know. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, good. I'm so glad that you enjoy it. Great.
Thank you so much.
I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's something we have in common with Amazon these days.
Yes, absolutely.
Amazon has lockers.
That's right.
And they started them about the time the library business started.
Yes.
Maybe, I don't know who was first, but.
Well, we're thrilled to have them, so thank you guys. Thanks.
All right, we're on to item number 8, new business. Item 8A is art donation by the Downers Grove Public Library Foundation.
And we have Robin Tryloff, who is the Art Planning Committee Chair for the Downers Grove Public Library Foundation.
Thank you, Julie. Most of you I've seen before. I'm pleased that we have another work of art to show you. I'm assuming since you all have laptops, you have both the text and the picture.
Yes.
I did bring my copy of the book in case anyone would like to see the book. That page that Julie's showing,
Put it, in case you want to see the book. I'm not sure we'll be able to get the whole thing on there.
It's page 22.
Part of it.
You can at least be part of it. We'll do the top half first. Because the actual.
and just to clarify, we're purchasing the artwork, which does not include the text. But because we love the text so much, what we plan to do, and I have offered to sacrifice my own personal copy of the book, is cut that page out and frame it next to the artwork because the text is so lovely. Show the world all that you can be. What a wonderful message for children to read when they're going into the children's area. Hopefully they're excited anyway, but just another punch. And that's where this would be. I think everybody knows where the frog is. So this will be on that orange wall above the frog. It's large, 20 inches by 30 inches is the art piece, and then of course it'll be framed. Just as a refresher. And actually, let's see, I think I have people in the audience. Sorry. Yeah. If you all want to look at past it. Just as a refresher, what the foundation does is it raises private funds for special opportunities, things that are beyond the taxpayer budget that the library already has. So things like satellite stacks at retirement communities that constantly need to be refreshed, the book club books, we launched those, the glasses for patrons who are colorblind to help them see color. So those are the types of things we do, and then of course, as you know, client comes when we have artwork we would like to purchase. So we are offering to purchase this artwork, pay for the framing and for whatever we do with the page next to it, and then as usual, donate it to the library. So I'm here tonight. But one other thing I wanted to add is the artist is a young woman, very up and coming. This is her 5th book now. This book was just published in 2022. She's a very exciting young artist, and her first job, when she was 12 years old, was in the children's section of her local library. So it all ties in beautifully. So I'm also here to answer any questions you might have before you vote on whether or not you would like to receive this gift.
Sorry if I missed this. What's the size of the painting?
20 inches by 30 inches. It's vertical, so 30 inches high, 20 wide.
Is it possible to add like a bio? Because I think that's such a great fact about the author.
Yes, we can add a bio, and also another thing that the Art Planning Committee is doing right now is we have hired an art historian, and she's writing a 3-minute script for, I can't say every artwork, but most of the artwork in the library that patrons will be able to have their headphones on and listen to it by clicking on a QR code on the label next to the artwork.
Oh, that's
So we will have that description, which will talk about the artist and the artwork, and it will have some prompts about, sorry, my background's in art history, so I get a little geeky about this. It will talk about, we're seeking like kind of a high school level, but obviously appropriate for younger people, to talk about how to appreciate a work of art, how to look at it, what do you see in the colors, you know, what does it remind you of, what does it prompt you to think of, this is about this artist's experience, do you have a similar one, that kind of thing. So again, we will encourage headsets, so it isn't noisy, but patrons will have that added experience, and yes, we could definitely put her bio as well.
And you may have seen that the foundation has also done art information cards besides several of our most recent acquisitions. So next to the lobby artwork, the Melissa Leandro piece, and next to the 2 Sarvan Hajiji pieces that are in our collection already, there are art information cards. It's got the image on one side and then some information about the work and the artist on the opposite side.
And we'll be doing that for this as well.
I think putting the QR code is just amazing.
Pardon me?
The QR code
Oh,
by each painting.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
I think it will just add so much to the experience. And
People are getting very used to doing that in stores and entertainment venues and everything. They'll see a QR code and they'll grab their phone immediately.
Exactly. Yes, thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Ms. Trent?
It says it's a painting. What media specifically?
It's paint on paper.
Okay. And do we kind of know, I mean, I'm assuming other work paint, well, we paint on canvas. Do we paint on, I'm just thinking about conservation and thinking about the long-term care of a piece like this in a very public, very
Well,
touchable
it will definitely
space.
have protective glass.
Okay, it will, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So that, because also since it's on paper, light damage is an effect
Yeah.
as well,
And
so.
humidity and. yeah.
Right.
Do we have a motion to approve this donation?
Hello, motion to approve the donation.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Caitlin, can you proceed with roll call?
Yes. Trustee Doherty?
Yes.
Trustee Humphries?
Yes.
Trustee Gutierrez?
Yes.
Trustee Nienberg?
Aye.
President Gabor?
Yes. All right, the donation by the Downers Grove Public Library Foundation has been approved. Thank you so much for your presentation and this painting and everything else you've done for the library.
Thank you.
Really appreciate
I'm
it.
really excited to see it on the wall.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, item number 8B, suspension of library privileges appeal. I know, it's coming up such a great time.
All right, as most of you know, on Monday, July 25th, there was an incident in the lobby of the library with an older woman, Diana Schleman, and 2 young boys that we were never able to identify. The boys came down the stairs as Ms. Swayman was waiting at the elevator. She claims that one of them touched her or poked her. And she immediately began shouting at the boys, and according to eyewitness accounts, she touched or struck one of the boys at least once. So, the whole incident, most of the incident happened out of camera range. We do have some footage of the very end of this incident that shows her either striking the boy or coming very close to striking the boy. You can also see there was a bystander who witnessed the event, who took it upon herself to take the boy out of the situation into the kids' room. She intervened before the building operations monitor could get there. And when she took him out of the situation, then Ms. Schleman left the area, went upstairs, and started talking to staff. There was also a gentleman who was in the lobby at the time who witnessed the yelling but did not actually observe her striking him. So what we have is the account from Sarah Ann Grusin, who was the bystander, that Ms. Schleman did indeed strike the boy, as well as the camera footage. Ms. Grusin did not actually identify herself to library staff, and she and the boys all left the building pretty quickly thereafter, before our building operations monitor was able to get upstairs, talk to the witness who was complaining at the CERC desk, get upstairs and talk to Ms. Schleman, who was complaining at the Adult and Teen Services desk, and then go back downstairs to try to find the boys and this other witness. So it was kind of there was a lot going on. Upshot of the whole thing, because Ms. Schleman was yelling, etc., and she struck the boy, we issued a ban, a suspension to her for 1 year. Ms. Schleman called to complain, claimed that the boy had struck or touched her first, and asked to appeal our decision for her 1 year suspension. She called me to make that appeal. I told her that because we had it on video and a witness account, that the 1 year suspension would stand, but that she could appeal to the library board, and she did request in email to do that. So that's why we're here tonight. And you've all seen the video. You've received the patron incident tracking software report, the screenshots of the Facebook conversation on Downers Grove parents about this, the statement from Ms. Rusin about it, the complaint from Mr. Brian Sewell about it. So I believe you have
I thought I remember seeing it in one of the emails, but I can't find it just now. Did Ms. Schleman have any other prior incidents with the library staff, library patrons?
I thought so too.
I thought she had one other one. I know.
I thought it was in the.
yes.
And I'm
there-
looking for. I was looking for it too. I feel like I remember seeing it too.
It was in the pit system.
Yes, I believe
Yeah,
there was another incident within the pits, but it wasn't anything that was a big
Yeah, I seem to
incident.
remember that too. I just wanted to confirm.
And staff were aware of her. She was known in the public computing area for a strong dislike of children in the area, and had frequently complained if there were any children in that, in the upstairs public computing area.
Is Ms. Schlingen a resident of Downers Grove?
No, she is not. She is a resident of a neighboring community.
Well, the combination of the video and the email we received from the eyewitness did it for me.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. I fail to see how this rises to the level of a one-year ban. I read the one-year ban was given based on physical or sexual assault and battery, I assume. I read the Illinois statute on physical battery. I read a legal definition of battery. I don't see any battery that occurred here. And by giving a one-year ban, this places it ahead of multiple serious offenses in other categories. How do we get to a one-year ban on this kind of stuff?
For any kind of physical assault on another patron, we, as a library, we don't have to rise to the legal definition of these.
But
These
we're
are
citing
terms.
and referencing the legal definition, right?
That's an internal procedural document, yes.
I think the struggle with, yes, assault is a very heavy word, but I also don't think that we can start getting into a gray area of like, well, how much did it hurt? Was it aggressive enough? Was it not aggressive enough? Was it a slap? Was it a poke? Was it a slap? Was it a punch? I think regardless, there has to be a hard line on you cannot touch other patrons when it's not warranted.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I looked at that video on loop, that one little section, 100 times this afternoon. I happen to think that she did not make contact with him. And I don't see how Ms. Rosen, from the angle she was standing at, could conclude that there was contact either. Like, there's a description around interfering with another person's comfort or safety, which is a one-day ban. And I think that fits far better than a one-year ban for physical assault and battery that puts it above abusive and the third offense for abusive and derogatory language, verbal, sexual, racial, and sexual harassment, street harassment directed at staffs and patrons. It feels to me like we're not following our own guidelines.
I also watched it several times, and one of the things I noticed is the people in the background who are all hearing what's happening. Like, you can see someone like stand up, and you see a few people turn their heads. So it was obviously very loud. To me, if someone touches my child, it's a child, and I see her hand go behind him, and where else would her hand have gone? I'm just saying, to me, she touched him. To me, I think that she did put her hands on a kid, and I think that is warranted for some type of a ban. I don't think that putting your hands on someone, especially a child, as an adult, should be allowed in our library at all.
I agree with you 100%. But I don't think we can conclude that she touched him. She said she didn't. She can't confront her accuser. I'm a due process guy. That seems like we've gone again to the most extreme penalty for something that isn't supported by due process.
I think my issue here is that the other person is a child, and we do not know who that child is, and frankly, I would be uncomfortable with questioning a child anyway. She was the adult in this situation, in this particular situation. This is not two adults who we can get one person side of the story. We have witnesses who are library users, not just one, but two. And we have the video that we see where we can clearly see people noticing what's happening. So I understand the due process. I get all of that, but we're talking about a child. And so I'm just struggling a little bit.
Just to clarify for the record, as a teenager, right?
Yeah, teenagers.
We're not sure.
Not sure. but-
We're not sure because we
We can
never
make
were able
observations
to
from the video.
identify.
I mean, my.
And I don't think it's a situation that doesn't need correction. I definitely think it does. I think confronting somebody verbally like that is inappropriate. And she should have, if she had a problem with those kids' behavior, she should have gone to a library staff person, not confronted that person. But again, we're going to the maximum ban, which puts it above multiple offenses on some pretty serious matters.
Not directly addressing that last statement, but one of the things that I was struck by very much was that this other patron felt it necessary to, and I'll use a strong word, but she did, rescue this kid and steer him away from the situation, and then subsequently write us an email like that. So I consider that pretty strong. Now, that doesn't directly address the severity in the ranking of bans, but
I agree with your characterization as a rescue is very strong.
yeah,
I don't know that this was a rescue.
But we did hear from both witnesses that both witnesses were very concerned about the safety of children in the library when actions like this are allowed to occur. And there were some very high profile, to me, words about this on that Downers Grove parents Facebook page about, and a lot of concern about safety of children in the library should behavior like, and how to curb behavior like this.
I don't think comments on a Facebook page should be admissible in a proceeding where we're evaluating a ban.
Which is precisely why that exact same comment was given in an email form.
Yeah, right. And again, that person was at an angle where she couldn't possibly make the determination that physical contact was made. I think it's debatable whether physical contact was made. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Ms. Schulman says that there was physical contact against her. We don't know whether they're proving that or disproving that. This should be confronted and it should be corrected. But a 1-year ban for a library patient seems wholly overdone.
I think I feel pretty firmly as a parent that does have a child that comes here on her own, and she's 12, and I do consider her a child. But it would make me feel very uncomfortable knowing that she's here with her friends. And I feel that this is a safe place for her, and I would like to think the public library is a safe place for her. But I would not stand for someone laying a finger on my child, and I'm not going to sit here and say, well, she didn't touch her hard enough, so we'll give her 6 months, we'll give her 50% off. Like, it's a touch, don't touch other patrons.
And we have no conclusive proof that she touched somebody.
And we don't have any that she didn't.
We don't. Therefore, it should be corrected, and that benefit of the doubt should preside, and that there should be some corrective action.
And I do tend to disagree with you regarding Ms. Rouson's vantage point. I think she has a clear view of the situation. She's like 2 feet away.
The child who was allegedly struck was between Ms. Rouson and Ms. Schulman. So I don't see how it's physically possible.
I mean, I disagree with you. I think that she's not very far away. She's like 3 feet away from him.
You disagree that she's...
Well, I think that she can, I think that, no, I mean, the child is in between, but I think that I'm watching it again. She's very close to where the child is sitting. So if someone were to touch the child, I'm sure she could hear it. I mean, you can hear someone touch someone. And I agree with you, Sopna. Both my children come here. My 12-year-old is 5'3", so not a teenager, but comes here all the time. And if someone were to touch them, I'd be very upset.
Me too.
And I think that, I mean, that's, again, an adult in a situation, and as I watch this, I see how everyone around that situation is reacting. And I don't know, I mean, what I see is her touching, but that's my opinion.
Did anybody watch that video and see that young man move at all, flinch at all?
No, to answer your question.
I didn't either.
But
I think it would be a pretty normal human response to at least move if you're touched by surprise. And certainly if you're struck.
and I did consider that. I don't believe that this is a legal proceeding. This is a library policy discussion. I think we're all in agreement that it was a serious offense. There seems to be disagreement on the severity in terms of what we do. I don't know what the right word is. Punishment. It's
Suspension of privileges.
suspension of privileges, and so, and I tend in issues like this, since I'm not as close to the situation as a parent and as the library staff members are, and so I tend to defer in matters like this.
So if we issue
to
a
the
one-year
staff.
ban, we are putting that offense above open possession, using or under the influence of a controlled substance such as alcohol or marijuana. Third offense. We're placing it above viewing of sexually explicit material, third offense. We're placing it above abusive or derogatory language, verbal, sexual, racial, or street harassment, third offense. If we approve this, we should completely overhaul our operations manual.
And I think we did discuss that at the last meeting, that we did say, and I was reading the minutes, that maybe we need to look at, with the rise of incidents that are occurring, maybe we need to look at how we handle different situations, right? We did discuss that a little bit.
We do have a public comment that I'm going to go ahead and allow.
I just have a question. Can she still put books on hold and use the locker?
She would be suspended from using the Downers Grove Library and facilities, so she couldn't use our lockers. However, she is a resident of another community, and even those who are suspended from our library, who are our residents, can still use other area libraries.
Do you have any other comments? If we don't, let's go ahead and can we get a motion?
I'll make a motion to reduce her penalty to something that is in line with abusive and derogatory language of a second offense, giving weight to the fact that it was a child, and reduce her suspension to 1 week.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Is that a, well, we didn't have any other motion. Okay. 1 week.
Yeah, 1 week in the operations manual, 1 week is consistent with abusive or derogatory language. Which clearly, there was elevated language. Verbal, sexual, racial, or street harassment. Clearly, this was not any of the latter, but it was verbal, directed at a staff or patron, and that's for a second offense. So giving some weight to the fact that it was a minor, I think we can skip the first offense and feel good about that. and move it to a second offense, and give the showman a penalty that's in line with our operations manual.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? All right, that motion has been declined. Do we have any other motions?
I'll make a motion to reduce her penalty to 1 month, which is a third offense. For, I'm sorry, that's not the verbal assault. Third offense of verbal assault is 3 months.
All right, we have a new motion on the board. Do we have a second?
Can I ask what the time period is for, so she specifically appealed this penalty, this suspension of privileges. What is the time period for responding to that report? Because, so I know I've been quiet during this conversation, maybe because I can, there's kind of multiple perspectives here that I can understand. So yeah, as having a child, like, you know, you lay in here with my kid, like, that's not okay. Lots of people have their children at the library as a safe place, and we want everyone to feel that way. The manual is, you know, we talked about this a little last time, that there are categories here. Is there one that specifically fits this incident? If all of the things that the witnesses, you know, I'm taking that as a given, I know you're not, Will. There's not one that's like, that's it. Now, again, are we ever going to be able to outline all of the different, like, weird offenses that come up? We're not. But I also don't know where this one fits exactly. So regardless of whatever motion kind of passes tonight about this specific incident, I really feel strongly about reviewing the building or operations manual and seeing, you know, kind of reflecting on all of these things that are happening more recently that have, you know, in the way come out of the woodwork that we've not had to deal with, certainly at the board level. And we want to make sure that staff have, you know, the agency to be able to deal with these things in a way that we're not seeing appeals. It's really strange that we've seen 2 appeals, right? In how many years there haven't been any?
In my 6 years, there were none.
Yeah. It's
I've-
odd. Yeah.
We've never had one in my,
But that means then we have to have a way of addressing that, and ideally a way that's fair and it treats, you know, is equitable. One of the things I thought about the last incident and this incident was, you know, I'm swapping, you know, races and ages and genders out for the different people and saying, would I think about it the same way if this person looked different than they do? Would I think about it this differently if they looked something different? Just because, you know, we have our biases looking at even these like grainy videos, like who are these people? You know, build a story of these people in your mind, and we can't do it. We're doing it anyway. As humans, we're doing it. But, you know, is there a way for us to be as equitable as possible and to have a way to something to bounce it off of that actually where it actually sticks in kind of the right place? Because you're right. There's not assault. I don't know. I don't, you know, legal definition, that's not my thing. But I also don't see another place in here. 1 week feels not right in my mind. So so I'm wondering about, like, what's the time period? I don't want to keep this person hanging, of course, because that's not fair either. At the same time, I want to respect the staff decision and staff's involvement with this, because they are the ones that have to protect our kids, and they're the ones that have to deal with incidents like this on a much more regular basis than we see here at this level. And I want to make sure that they are given the tools to be able to address these things, so that we don't have to get involved, because they're the ones having to.
And I think it's also important to note that this incident actually happened on the Monday prior to our last board meeting. And so all of this was happening at the time of the board meeting. So Jen has done some work looking at the guidelines and doing some updates to their procedures and trying to bring things more into line, and so we've begun that process. But of course, that was not in place.
Can I just add something real quick? It's been very difficult to create the infraction and suspension pairing. It has been reviewed and overhauled. We review this manual annually and make updates to it almost bi-monthly because there's so many changes. And we're experiencing so many things we've never experienced before. Just last week, for an example, we had a patron come in, making our staff uncomfortable, discussing firearms and guns. And we had a call to the Downers Grove Police Department come to the library. And I actually deferred to their counsel because there are certain things that I'm not sure how to handle. And I don't want to make a mistake in protecting the staff and patrons here. It's scary to have those responsibilities. And we do want to err on the side of caution. So with that said, there have been circumstances where we've had to call the police to ask what their suggestions would be and how to handle some certain incidents that arise here. And so I do want to reassure you that we don't take this lightly, that this is under evaluation constantly changing it. And there's not, we can't possibly address every single circumstance and issue that comes. And I just want to say one other thing. I don't ever want to play the card where we are playing it safe and not taking the utmost safety of our patrons and staff into consideration. Because as we make certain allowances, we'll get more and more loose in our guidelines and rules. And I don't want to see that happen either. So we will continue to look at this. Julie and I will talk, as well as Ian, our building operations director, and we will reevaluate the infractions and the suspensions, in addition to consulting with perhaps the Downers Grove Police Department. So just want to reassure you that we will work on this.
And I hope, I don't want to minimize your responsibility and that there are sometimes situations that are serious. The police would not call to this. We're talking about an elderly lady yelling at a kid.
May I have your attention, please? The library will be closing in 15 minutes. Please bring the items you wish to check out to the self-checks or the first floor service desk at this time. Again, the library will be closing in 15 minutes. Thank you.
Sorry. Allegedly, but not provable, touching a child once. There was one motion, right? Without any risk to that child's safety. I don't think it was appropriate. She should be corrected. We don't have any documented prior offenses. This is something that should be addressed, but I'm not surprised there's been 2 appeals because we're leaping to the maximum available penalty for a patron. I don't see how we do that in good conscience. And I think, this isn't to undermine staff. I think when you're in the heat of the moment, sometimes it feels maybe more dire than it really is. But I think with the benefit of time, the video that we do see, which isn't conclusive, we can have different opinions and agree to disagree, but it isn't conclusive. That's objectively true. And we are placing this above other much more serious offenses. So I'll amend my motion. This is not described under 1 month. Maybe the 1 month should be expanded. But I'll move to reduce our penalty to 1 month.
I think we actually had your previous motion on board for 3 months.
I'll withdraw, modify that motion, and amend it to be 1 month.
All right, we have a motion for the suspension to be amended to 1 month. Do we have a second? All right, that motion has not been seconded. Do we have another motion?
I will move that we deny the appeal for suspension.
I will second that. All right, we have a motion to deny the appeal and a second. Caitlin, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Trustee Doherty?
Yes.
Trustee Humphries?
Yes.
Trustee Kuntia?
Yes.
Trustee Nienberg?
Nay.
President Gagnon?
Yes. All right, that appeal has been denied. Item number 8C, Library Director Evaluation Process and Timeline.
This is just a check-in that the process and timeline that we used in previous years is still working for the board. Generally, what we have done is in September, I give the board my self-evaluation and some goals some ideas for goals for next year, and the form. And everybody takes that and looks at it, reviews it independently, and then at the October board meeting, you all come together and we have a closed session during which the board as a group go through and kind of make a rough draft of their evaluation of me. And then Carissa did that previously, so we're hoping she will do it again. And then moving forward, that then you would look at that in November to confirm that that is indeed the review you want to give me, discuss salary as necessary, and then have that implemented. And generally, I believe December, Carissa and I met about that.
I'll just comment. I think the one thing that was most difficult for us as a board last time was the staff relations category for this. And I mean, now that I think we've been through it like twice now, right? Using this form or something very similar. I actually it's important, but I also think as a board it's very hard for us to evaluate that objectively and with any kind of authority. So I would actually want maybe remove that section. I don't know if I would replace it with anything necessarily, but I think that's one area where it was difficult to do, and I think it doesn't necessarily reflect what's actually happening because we're not there as a board. So that was my main comments about the process. I think everyone last year had really good notes and really specific examples, which was very helpful. Because really all I ended up doing was taking people's kind of written notes, compiling them, and that to discuss kind of in general, like, okay, how are you feeling about this section? This is an example. Okay, that example would be kind of matches with this one. Let's put that in review. So it's just kind of a process of gauging where the board is on any one of these categories, and then kind of assembling some of the evidence, if you will, to assert like, okay, yes, she's doing a good job with this, and here are some things that back up that statement. So it's like Julie said, it's been a two-phase process.
Thank you for refreshing my memory. I do recall we chatted about that a little
We did
bit
it a little
last
bit
year.
differently the first year. We did a little bit differently the first year.
We had difficulty with that
Yeah.
particular category.
You're also on Zoom.
Because that makes everything.
That's right, yeah.
Yes.
First time.
And I remind us that we are not limited in our ultimate discussion of the appraisal review to the items that are on that sheet, but it does focus our thoughts and our independent of any corporate decision. It's very helpful, but that one I do remember we decided wasn't very helpful.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding this process? So September you'll give the self-evaluation.
And
We
the
kind of
updated
compile our
form.
stuff. Yes, and then October's our closed session. November's kind of the final.
Good.
Do we need a motion for this, or is it just?
No, this was just how do you want me to proceed? So thank you. That's all I need.
All right, before we dive into the budget and the levy, do we need a quick 5-minute stretch? Are we feeling good?
And to maybe get ourselves arranged for when the library closes and we are still in an open meeting,
we do need to make sure that there is public access to the building, and so we accomplish that by leaving the handicap access door right over here unlocked, and then we usually prop this door open so that we can see and hear if someone comes in, and they lock the vestibule doors leading to the lobby so that people cannot get all the way in. So if anybody needs a bio break, now is the time.
We're going to go ahead and get back into session. So we are on to item number 9, unfinished business, 2023 budget and levy.
Yes, and my apologies for the wrong draft of the narrative being in the packet. So pages 28 to 36 were replaced. You all should have gotten the PDF of the update. That's my fault. I was working on it on Wednesday here and on Thursday from home, and then when I came back and put it into the board packet folder on Friday for Caitlin, I put the wrong version. Ugh, so frustrating. Anyway, so in your packet, the narrative is pages 28 to 36. Page 37 is the balance sheet. 38 is the revenue detail. 39 to 41 is the simplified expenditures. 42 to 52 is the detailed expenditures. Then pages 53 to 54 have the levy and tax rate. 55 to 57 have the tax rate, levy, and EAV history. So that shows us going all the way back into the early 2000s. And then on pages 58 through 60, we have our standards comparisons. And then pages 61 to 64 are actually the draft examples of what will actually be in the village's budget. As you can see, it is a very simplified version that goes in the village's budget. There is a couple of paragraphs of narrative.
The library is now closed. We will reopen tomorrow at 9 a.m. Have a good evening. So it's bedtime.
Yes. There's a short narrative both for the library fund and for our library capital replacement fund, and then very simplified budget. So in the village's hundreds and hundreds of pages of budget document, we are 4 pages. So what I have presented to you tonight, we did have some pretty major changes on the expenditure budget side, which then impacted the levy request that I'm putting forth for you. The most significant change on the expenditure side was we did get preliminary information from the Village of Downers Grove insurance broker about what that insurance benefit renewal might look like. And they told the village to expect more than 5%. So we went with 10 as a nice round number. But because we had heard that it could be a much higher number, we had originally used 20%. So rolling that back to 10% made a huge, huge difference, as you can see, on the personnel side of our expenditures budget. And the other large change was we went ahead and looked at the personal property replacement tax, which is the only other significant source of revenue that we have that comes from the state. And this is a convoluted tax that comes through personal property income taxes to the state of Illinois. It is distributed through the village. We get 12.5% of what the village gets. However, it is distributed from the state 8 times a year, and their fiscal year is July 1 to June 30, so we get half of last year's and then half of this year. So it's not a number that we can easily pinpoint. So we're using our best guess. We have received a significant amount. If you go back to our revenues, we've received almost about $160,000 so far this year. So we went ahead and increased and we had only budgeted for 60,000 and got 160. So we went ahead and increased that to 130. We're not sure. We've been told that there is the possibility that the PPRT, personal property replacement tax, could go down as well. So we don't want to bank on what we got this year. But that is a significant increase on our revenue side as well. So putting all of those together, along with getting some final numbers or closer numbers on some other things, getting the initial estimates on the LIRA renewal, getting our, also honing in more. You know, we've had some significant staff turnover. We also had 2 unexpected retirements in July and August that have really helped us save some money, because we had folks who were at the absolute top of their pay grade leave us, and so we have people coming into those positions at the lower end of that spectrum. So that does help us as well. And in addition to that, it has also allowed us to use some of that attrition to make some of the changes that we've talked about on the equity side to create more more of the part-time with benefits positions and more full-time positions. So we're rolling some positions together to try to do that. So the bottom line is that I am presenting to you a 3% levy increase. This would maintain the library fund balance at a level that exceeds our operating reserve amount, and it will hopefully mitigate the impact on the taxpayer. The village is using the assumption of 5.6% EAV increase for this year, and assuming that that is correct, or at least close to, that means that the property taxes would decrease about $1.66 per $100,000 of home value. So for the average homeowner in Downers Grove, whose home is about $360,000, it would be a savings of about $5.68. Our estimated property tax rate for that, a levy at that amount, would be approximately 0.1973, and that's expressed in mils, so that's per $100 of valuation. Our current tax rate is 0.203, so it would decrease our property tax if the EAV expands as we expect it to. If EAV does not expand at all, you would see a 3% increase for those taxpayers. Overall, I believe that this provides a good, a nice level of fund balance for us in the library fund. It provides for the increased transfer to the library capital replacement fund, and it also allows us to hit all of our goals for 2023, all of the, including the strategic planning consultant, to get that new strategic plan in place before our next budget cycle, to also do our full salary structure update in 2023, which is on cycle, as we had discussed when we did the previous salary structure update in 2019, sorry.
years, they all run together. And do you have any questions for me? The total amount of the levy that I am requesting is, oops, I think I have a wrong number in here. It is, and I also have the spreadsheet up, so if you want to see something else, we can plug in some different numbers as well. So what I am actually proposing is a levy of $6,038,312 for 2023. Our total expenditures for the year would be $6,390,810, with a transfer to the Library Capital Replacement Fund of $367,500 for this year. That would leave us with approximately $650,000 at the end of the fiscal year as library fund balance. And again, utilizing that fund balance strategy that would allow us, because we do generally come in pretty well under budget every year, we are able to continue this fund balance strategy. As you can see, we are projecting to have approximately $1.1 million in the library fund at the start of 2023.
Just to clarify, what was the levy amount again? Where is it?
6 million, the easiest place to find it is page 38. It's the top line, that's here,
Okay,
this is your revenue sheet. You can also find it on page,
When you think the 9 money budget, so this is
yeah,
this isn't
that might still be a wrong one, I just looked at it and went, oops. The levy and tax rate, page 53. And that is, and actually, let me see, I think I have it up here. This is page 53 that you have, and as you can see, that is this number, the $6,038,312. That is a 3% increase over the last year.
And what is the excess in the reserve over, or the excess in the library fund over the reserve amount?
The reserve amount is $455,000, what is our target amount. So this gives us approximately $200,000 over our operating reserve amount estimated at the end of 2023. And since I have this up, if you want to see me do it a different way, we can, if you'd like me to like plug in a flat, we can do that here. And then look at what that does. So then when you take that over to the fund balance, that actually puts us so this is at that flat levy, then your fund balance. Then we see it in our revenues here. It makes our total revenue for the year $6.1 million. And carrying that over to our balance sheet, that would leave us at an estimated $478,000 in the library fund balance.
Tell me a little bit more about that, Dave. Why is, if it's above our reserve, what's the level of discomfort, or maybe Julie can answer that as well? So that would allow us to still maintain all of the expenditures we've got budgeted. it still is in excess of the reserve. It facilitated the transfer to the capital fund.
With the inflation rate that we are seeing, I don't believe that, I realize that the inflation rates we are seeing are in the current budget year, not next budget year. But I am very uncomfortable at a time when we can actually reduce the rate and only raise the levy by 3% to, which is what, $1 or something for
About $5.
typical,
About $5 for.
$5 for typical home, that with so much unknown in the economic forecasts, it just makes me considerably more comfortable to see the $1 million in that fund at that point. If it turns out that, that things come out beautifully, and we end up with that, then next year we can use that to reduce the potential levy next year. I just feel there's so much unknown right now that since this is such a small portion of the total tax bill, and our library, as everybody, 98% of the people tell me, is the most popular thing on their tax bill. I add those things together, and I do feel much more comfortable with the proposal that is here. Now, if we were to have to raise the rate, I would feel much less comfortable. And it's the best way I can express it. I'm not an accountant, but I feel very uneasy about the inflation rates this year, and that's going to spill over to prices next year that we have to pay.
And so what I'm hearing you say is that additional $200,000 in the library fund balance gives us a little wiggle room should our price increases continue in the vein that they have been recently.
And as I've said many times, it's a broken record perhaps almost, but I'll say it briefly again. We have to remain at least competitive, hopefully a little bit slightly better than competitive in our staff remunerations in order to maintain the level of customer satisfaction which we enjoy. And at a time when we've seen retirements accelerating a little bit, I mean, the mass resignation that we hear about throughout the world, and especially in the United States, I don't want that to happen in our library because we can't, it's difficult for us to recover in a short period of time for that. We have to be able to keep our current staff and reward them. Reward is a dangerous word, I realize. We're not rewarding them, we're paying them. And they're paying their rent and food bills with that. And if we don't keep the level of competence in our staff, the library's going to go down. And I just cannot. That contributes to my comfort level. And I wish I was an accountant and could convert all that to numbers, but I see the staff has done that.
So I don't disagree. I think we should maintain our staffing. This wouldn't affect the expenditures, right? It would just affect the fund balance. So the payment, the salaries and the benefits, that's untouched. I can include any of this, right?
For 1 year.
Julie, when you made this change, what was the impact on the taxpayer amount that I've got. So you said it was $5 before for the average 360,000. I don't know if we showed the page where it actually trickles down into the individual taxpayer amount.
Let's go back and see if it's still, per $100,000 of home value, so the difference would be about,
It's like, what,
Two-
65 to 78?
yeah, yeah.
So say that again.
Let me go. Why was it not working correctly? Oh, there we go. Got it. Okay.
It goes
So-
down to like a buck 92.
Yeah, so this would be $3.58 per $100 of fair market value, and the total savings for the year for the average homeowner would be $12.23.
That's
So-
based on the EAV though, right?
Yeah, yeah, so the difference is, in 3% their savings, and this is all of our assumptions being equal, it would be $5.68 savings. Going with a flat levy, then you're at the $12.23 savings.
A good way to cut through all of the statistics is to just do the net increase. And
Yeah.
this is pulling another $175,000 from the taxpayers of Downers Grove, right? Real wages have decreased. So we've had a month and we've had some financial data that's come out, right, from the government, from the Treasury. Real wages have decreased. PPI has mitigated, so the rate of inflation has stabilized.
That's what?
PPI has stabilized.
I don't quite agree with that statement. My reading of it, it's, the word stabilize, I don't quite.
Okay, so I'll be
It
more
is-
precise. It
It
is
is
not
leveling
increased.
off, but it's not stable. But that's, I don't want to.
Okay, I'll use different words. It has not increased.
But that's for 1 month.
Right. But this budget is for this year, right? And we're saying that in order to support a fund that's higher than the reserve requirement, support a project that's gone, if I remember my math, 270% over budget, we're going to increase the burden to the taxpayer by $175,000. Just want to, I'm not.
Yeah,
I just want to be
I don't
I
disagree
want to
with
cut
what
through
you're
all
saying.
of because the average homeowner, even if their EAV increases by 5%, doesn't put more money in their pocket.
I don't disagree with that statement. I'm speaking comfort levels.
Right.
And we talked about the insurance rates were less than we originally estimated.
It's pretty good.
We don't really know where they are yet. That's always an issue each year. Some years when I've been on this board, they've come through much higher in the final analysis. The personal property replacement fund that she mentioned, we're assuming $130,000 on that. It could be $75,000. Now, unlikely it would be that much lower. But I'm trying to said it before, improve my comfort level if the reserve fund, what I call the reserve fund, turns out to be much higher next year as a result of everything going well. not going to say, well, we need to do it again. And just accumulate that fund. We need to have that fund at a reasonable level, but we have had years where it was not acceptable. And so it's...
Should we just clarify if the levy's flat, the fund balance is still in excess of reserves?
Yes, just barely.
What's the amount exactly?
$478,000. So our operating reserve policy says 455. And again, that is also based on the estimate of where we're going to end fiscal '22. And we're still not, we're making best guesses here.
For me, our comfort level doesn't trump the comfort level of the taxpayer whose real wages have decreased and have already realized a 50-year high inflationary pressures. I think they would applaud us for being able to support the full budget, still maintain our operating reserves, support a project, a much-needed project that has gone over budget in part because of those inflationary pressures, and still come out whole.
I don't
think it would
disagree
be
with that statement.
I think that would be a very responsible move.
I don't disagree with that. I'm sure we would get applause from some of the taxpayers if we would save them $12.
Yeah, $12.23.
But I'm worried about the potential for a problem next year. I don't see a problem this year. If I only look at the 1 year, I would agree with you.
Just to clarify though, this levy is for this year, right?
I know, but I'm taking a longer view and trying to smooth out the ups and downs of this. In the years I've been on the library board, we've seen levies boil down a lot, and more recently I've seen them smooth a little bit more. And I think that's a longer term, a little easier on the taxpayers.
So I'm super impressed by the, Julie, you're kind of finding those places where we can, as we said, maintain the expenditures that we anticipated in terms of keeping our staffing and, implementing equity, some of the equity plans that equity will show this year, while kind of keeping within and adjusting revenue as we understand how that will change. When I look at, there's a lot of numbers that get presented to us the board, like pages and pages, right? And when I look at these, and the things I've been thinking about are one, how can we support the programs and the services and the staff that the library has? And I think we see that here pretty clearly. As we're saying, we're talking more about the revenue side right now than the expenditures, which is a great place to be in, I think. And the other place I kind of, again, like where my eye was drawn, because I am a taxpayer, is the like, what am I looking for? And how does that change, or how does that change from what I've paid in previous years? And so looking at that trend, with 1% here, and then also here, of course, with this adjusted version of here, the trend has been thankfully downward, right? Like per $100,000 of home value, the trend has been gradually downward. And I think in past discussions, to your point, David, it's a slightly different tack, but I think thinking about keeping things stable, right? So I think continuing to see, and actually, if we were to graph this, it would be like more decrease this coming year, even with the numbers presented in the original budget. And I'm just thinking about that looking at it as a homeowner and saying, okay, here we are, and then there's a drop, and then there's a bigger drop. Is the anticipation that every year the library is going to charge me less? And what does that mean for me? Is that, am I getting the services that I want? Am I expecting that every year? Are we as a board then going, oh my God, we reduced by $12 last year, we have to do more next year? I think in the past we've kind of tried to say, well, let's not make a big change one way or another in lots of these different places. There's the taxpayer dollars, there's the EAV, there's the, all these kind of intervening calculations that happen. And I'm every time I look at this, again, there's lots of complications. I'm looking at how can we keep things stable over time, and so that there's not any big movements one way or another, so that when we come at it next year, I'm like, oh my God, we made this decision last year, we got this huge difference. Are we going to make the same change this year, or are we going to make a slight adjustment rather than making a big change? And again, I'm only speaking about this number. I know there's lots of other numbers here. That's when I'm looking at that. That's the perspective I'm taking, and I appreciate the work you put into this, Julie, to make it want to get in the state, because I know last time we met, there's a lot of things going on. This is, I think, an improvement over that I hadn't anticipated, and when I'm looking at this number, the number here, is even decreasing in the face of all the inflationary measures that the library is having to deal with. I'm impressed by that, and I can support that. We're talking about the reserve fund and how our comfort level there, and I think that's where our discussion has been, and I don't know if that's the full discussion. So I just kind of wanted to talk about the kind of taxpayer perspective and the perspective of how are things changing year over year. What are we looking at in trends?
And I think it's interesting to note that when we did the 1% increase, that it took it down a few dollars, but then because of what happened with the EAV, when we did a 4.5% increase, the change to the actual taxpayer was so minimal. So there are so many moving parts in this. I think that is the most difficult thing, because you're doing estimates on estimates for all of this. We're trying to project where is the EAV going to go, where is the inflation going to go, what's going to come in where, and it's a big guessing game. We've done very well in past years on, trying to spin with a levy that's somewhere around what we're expecting for the EAV to do, because that's how we keep that tax rate kind of around the same amount, and that's how we smooth it to the taxpayer.
Echo what Chris said about a good job of working through the budget and all the puts and takes. And again, reiterate that we're able to support that full budget and not increase the tax burden and still end up with a fund that exceeds our reserves. We'll have an opportunity next year to make another levy that could absorb any unforeseen expenses heading into next year. And all of the stuff about EAVs and percentage of per 100,000 still falls to the wayside when you look at we're going to increase the tax burden by $175,000. Like all of the rest of it is just different ways to spin an increase in the tax revenue. And I'm not advocating for cutting any programs. To the gentleman's point, the library provides a great amount of services, and we're going to be able to do that. That's awesome. That's a testament to Julie and her staff. And we should give a shout out to Jen, because I bet she has the ideas.
And all of our management team, who they are very cognizant of trying to maximize every dollar that we receive as a library and to give the best possible value. And they are very cognizant of that in our entire budget process, as well as in their day-to-day operational spending. So shout out to our wonderful staff, because
Bravo.
They are amazing.
Yeah, bravo.
Amen. We need to keep it that way. We need to keep the staff that
service to the expenses that are tied to preserving and supporting the staff. The budget is, the expenses part of the budget is unaffected.
But there is the potential of being fined next year.
Then we have a levy next year.
Well, I would like to have, I would not like to have major changes in the levy from year to year. I'm trying to keep it smooth. And I did the same thing when I was on my condo board. We had a reserve fund in the condo board. Sometimes it got big, sometimes it got bad. All of a sudden, the roof had to be replaced a year ahead of schedule, and we were able to do it without having to borrow money. And the residents of my condo board thanked us for that. And you don't have to do that. I agree with your statements. It's an attempt, in my mind, to smooth the curve. And you can't always predict what's going to happen a year and a half from now.
I agree. We have a luxury that most
And that's why
private entities don't have, in that we can adjust to those unforeseen circumstances every year on our revenue side, which is a luxury most households don't have.
I was just asking Julie about the strategic plan cost and kind of where that
Yeah.
falls, and so it sounds like it's going to be kind of split between the 2 years as the process has gone out.
We have a plumber allowed any questions?
Any other comments before motion?
I'm curious, Bill, is the kind of zero, or kind of, I guess, flat, yes, flat, sorry, yes, flat, yeah, flat gross levy, is that, I'm trying to think how to phrase this, like, is that the kind of the gold standard that you're thinking about overall, and kind of year over year, or is it the specific circumstances of this year and this year's budget that are kind of?
Well said. I think it's the latter. And I'm new on the board, and I don't want you to think that this is my pattern. I think for us to be able to support the full budget, absorb the cost of a project that's gone significantly over budget, still maintain our operating reserve in excess of the policy, and keep the capital replacement fund whole is an accomplishment that I have no part of. You get all the credit for. And it would send a powerful message to the taxpayer in what has been a challenging year by any account, for us to do our part. And the level of comfort argument for me, no disrespect, falls apart, because we have a luxury, as I pointed out, that most private enterprises and most households don't have. We can adjust our revenue at will. So I think that would send a powerful message that we're partnered with the taxpayers in providing the full complement of services, supporting the staff, keeping our reserve where it needs to be, funding the capital improvements that we think are important to the staff and to the library, and still being good fiduciaries for the taxpayer. That would send a great message. But since I am new to the board, I don't want you to think that would be my position every year. I think people have faced an unprecedented increase in expenses this past year. I'm sure you all put a lot of money into your gas tank more than you'd like to this year.
I respect your arithmetic and your philosophy. I really do. And I'm not that far away from that. And there are other proposals.
And 0% and 3% are not the only options. There is.
Well, and that's kind of why I asked. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
about, like, is it about that statement you said that you were making, you increasing the tax burden by 75,000. Is that the, you know, is that the thing? Or is it, well, can we find a place where there's a comfort level, maybe not the level that you want it to be, but also, you know, again, I'm looking at making sure that next year when we're thinking about the especially, again, the taxpayer number, that we're not setting ourselves up to have, you know, this kind of, now we're having to scrape out our, the expenditure side, because that's what I don't want to, that's tough, and we don't want to see that.
So with a flat levy, we're about 23,000 over the reserve amount. If we're at 100,000 over the reserve amount, which is just to bring it back to reality for most folks, that's more than most people have, most buffer that people have. Would that make you feel comfortable?
Yeah, so this is 1%.
Most people don't have a $6 million budget
But
either.
most people don't have a $455,000 operating reserve either.
Yeah. So, and thank you, Village, for our intergovernmental agreement that means that we don't actually have to cover any operating under waiting on our tax payments, because the Village takes care of that for us. They're amazing. But this is with a 1% levy increase, and that would put us somewhere in that $100,000, around $100,000 over. And that puts us at a levy of 5.9 million. And that actually takes us back to, that's similar to what we did in 2020, going into the 2021 levy during the pandemic, and we were looking at easing the taxpayer again. And so we did that 1% levy the 1 year, and then, as you know, the following year it was a 4.5% increase. But again, because the EAV, we are very lucky. The value of property in our area has continued to increase, and we are benefiting from the new development and the continued work of DGEDC and Downtown Business Association in bringing new investment into the downtown and getting new places on the tax rolls that really does spread that tax burden across more taxpayers.
The other advantage we have is that the EAV lags a couple of years. And the jump in property values this year, you may see in a couple of years. And that will.
The cycle is about 3 years behind for full impact. You get a little, because it's a blended thing.
I'm not going to go to the matter with this one.
Go ahead and make a motion.
But
I'd love to.
I'm looking at some of my colleagues also.
Well, I mean, I think my views on this are very similar to Chris's. I think that I look at, you know, what's on my tax bill, what am I paying? If I see a decrease, I'm happy with it. And I am concerned about, you know, I guess cutting it too close to the point where we're then having to go back to the taxpayers and ask for more money next year. And I do like the trend that we are, you know, on a very gentle decline down. So that they have to come back and be that year that's unexpected.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way too. And I always think about what we don't know and didn't know about COVID. And like I feel like we're always in a state of urgency that something could just happen. And I don't want to feel that way. And I don't want us to be thinking about in the future cutting anything. And I love the idea, you know, I think it was last month when Cindy was here and talking about new opportunities to do new things. And even today, some of the ideas that the staff have that we can make our library even better. And going back to what Ed said in the very beginning, this library is the hub for so many things, and I just worry when if we make the wrong decision, that we're gonna be in a situation next year, as Dave keeps saying, that we're gonna have to come back and say to taxpayers, hey, look, tried to play it too conservatively, and now we need to come back to you and ask you for more. That's my, I'm not, when I look at all these numbers, my musical theater bill is like, what? So I'm thinking, I'm listening to both of you, and I hear both of you have really good points, but that's kind of where I'm sitting.
Julie said, it's not just 0 or 3.
Right.
I'll go ahead and be interested. Getting home before 10 o'clock, I'll make a motion. In order to preserve the full budget for the library, maintain a reserve of $100,000 or a fund balance of $100,000 over our reserve, support the capital projects, including the increase in the budget for the capital projects, that we pass a 1% increase in the total levy.
All right, we have a motion to increase the levy by 1%. Do we have a second? All right, and we have a second.
And we don't have to vote immediately. We can discuss briefly, hopefully, at the 1%.
Did you include then, including the expenditures budget in that motion to approve our expenditures budget for the year?
Yes.
You said that, right?
Well, the motion was to approve the
Motion's
levy.
very long, so I don't remember.
The motion was to approve the levy. So I'll amend the motion, I'll amend my own motion and include approving the expense budget.
And I'll re-second.
There you go.
Right. We have a motion and a second. Comments regarding these?
My comfort level would be less, but I think an acceptable level, I guess is the way I look at that. And part of me is showing a lot of respect for your homework on this, and the language you used to describe it.
Thanks.
And I'm not trying to ignore the taxpayers. I would prefer 3%, but I will not vote against 1%.
I like, if I can just borrow your language and amend it slightly, I think it's a good partnership with the taxpayers. We're providing full services, we're mitigating the burden, we're maintaining our buffers, and we're supporting our capital expenditures despite the increases in the cost. I think it's a great partnership with the taxpayers.
I think we're in a pretty good position to be able to do this year. I would like to be in slightly a better position risk-wise next year, but I think we still can be. I will not vote against that motion.
Do you have any other comments regarding the motion on the floor? No? Proceed with roll call.
Trustee Jordan?
Yes.
Trustee Humphries?
Yes.
Trustee Kuzia?
Yes.
Trustee Greenberg?
Yes.
President Dodd?
Yes. All right, the motion to approve the budget and levy with a 1% has been approved. Nice work.
Good work.
All right, item number 10 on the agenda, library director's report. Hey, make it quick, Justin. I'm just kidding.
I have a couple of notes I want to hit.
That was your outside voice.
Reminder of Trustee Day on October 20th. If anybody can go, let me or Caitlin know. In-service day is Friday. We will be closed to the public. And we will be doing some staff wellness as well as active shooter. And actually, those are flip-flopped in order in the ways that they should be.
Good, yes.
We're doing active shooter training in the morning, followed by some wonderful wellness presenters. I do have the unfortunate job of telling you that our elevator project has been postponed into September, sometime with a big question mark. Happy supply chain things haven't shown up. So,
How many times have we heard that?
yeah, so we are waiting. On the good news side, we had a very well-attended pre-bid meeting for the workroom renovation project, which our construction managers from Shales McNutt are very hopeful that that means we will get a lot of good and competitive bids on our project.
A lot of bidders.
Yes, the more bidders, the better it is for us, so fingers crossed. And then finally, I did want to give you a heads up that on October 11th, which is National Coming Out Day, we will be hosting a drag queen bingo for teens right here in this room. That event will include a small drag show, and that will be featured in the Discoveries newsletter that will be coming to homes very soon, so don't be surprised if we get some complaints along the way. We have briefed staff with some talking points. The major talking point on this is that this is a program that you can choose to come to or allow your team to attend, or if it is not for you, don't attend. The library is a choose your own adventure kind of a place, so if it's not for you, choose not to. And that was all I had.
Thank you very much, by the way, for sharing that, those notes to the staff with us. I think that gives us good talking points, and I certainly agree with you. Not all of our programs are intended for all of our customers. And I mean, there's some programs on there that I prefer not to go to. But
Oh, we haven't gotten there yet.
It would be a good segue to trustee comments and requests for information.
I have one question. You mentioned 2 retirements that occurred recently. I think we had started trying to get us to sign cards. So for one of us to sign cards for maybe if any of us can have the time to come into the office and maybe just sign some cards for staff.
I will say that a couple of our recent ones have not wanted any
a card from us.
Have not wanted like anything.
Okay. I just wanted
they
to
were
offer.
very, we're just done.
Okay.
second part.
Yeah.
One comment on Saturday, is it this Saturday? No, yeah, it is this Saturday, the 27th. I'm going to go to the Downers Grove Farmers Market wearing a library t-shirt and answer questions from the public who might stop by and wonder what's going on at the library. And I had a session today, an orientation today with Cindy, who brought me up to speed. I'm going to be accompanied by Brian.
Ruing.
Huh?
Brian Ruing.
Brian, yeah, who everybody assures me will keep me back up. And I'm thrilled to be able to do that, and we can't wait. Other than the fact that it's at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, I'm very excited about it.
Right by the donut line, so it's very prime location.
I forgot one thing. Saturday, September 10th, 11 a.m. That is the Pierce Downer Heritage Alliance dedication of the memorial bush in the garden for Betty Cheever. And for any of you who knew Betty Cheever, September 10th is her birthday, and it would have been her 93rd.
I understand understanding is several of the family members will be in attendance.
And everyone is welcome.
I just have one comment. This is probably not going to be a surprise. I'm bothered by the outcome of the appeal tonight. And part of the reason I'm bothered by it is because we're coming out of a period of unprecedented stress on mental health. And I think in the future, I hope that we can have more bent towards counseling and de-escalation versus banning somebody from a public resource that they obviously value. I don't know Ms. Schulman. Special reason to be sympathetic towards her position. But we don't know what her situation is. And everybody's fighting a battle. And I think it would have been more appropriate to counsel her, to give her a second chance. This is the first offense. I'm just bothered by the outcome. I hope that we're a little bit more discretionary in giving out bans to a resource that is a public resource that we value.
I like that comment. I think that is something that maybe we can consider going forward. We're not counselors, we're not social workers, but
the mayor put a post out. It was a response to another post. It wasn't his post. He responded to a post and pointed out that the police, and I understand that the library staff are not police or trained accordingly. The police regularly use discretion in not applying the full extent of what is available to them. And they more often than not de-escalate situations and counsel people. I think that there's a lot to be said for that as a public servant. I think the library staff in some realm are public servants. And I just hope that that's a little bit, it's taken into consideration. We're a little bit more discreet about that in the future.
yeah, we are a part of a community, and the community needs to take some significant actions at addressing the mental health
Yep.
concerns. And I'm thrilled that our police department are being trained in de-escalation techniques. Something like 60 or 70% of the officers have had a 40-hour course in that, including the chief. So that's a good start. That our community needs to address these issues on a much grander scale. I really agree with you.
And our staff are trained in de-escalation, and they generally use all of those tools in their toolkit. Unfortunately, the timing of this incident was such that our building operations monitor was literally just finishing up walking out someone else who had just had a major incident in the library and did not get to this incident until after it was over. And so de-escalation was not an option.
Was
They
that
were,
other-
they were very busy trying to figure out what happened first and foremost.
What was that other major incident?
Yes, it was Dave, that was David Kroll.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think I've read those
Yes.
hits reports like
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Someone who had repeated incidents that was just breaking the same rules over and over and over again, that has mental health issues, that the getting him to leave the library following an incident takes a significant amount of
Yeah.
time.
What was the penalty on that individual?
He had
I believe it was a week.
It started with a day, and
It started
built up
with
because there were many repeated offenses.
Yes.
But it
Yeah, I
started with a day.
think consistency in application of penalties is important.
But I don't think there was physical contact involved.
No.
To another
No.
patron. I think that's what
Again.
changes it.
That
We've
was-
already.
It was a very, very
Yeah,
different
I don't think we can
situation.
prove there was physical contact.
Yeah,
I'm good.
that particular second person that you just mentioned was a good example of someone who needs mental
Yeah.
health intervention, but is unwilling to accept it.
Yeah.
And we don't have facilities for that. And he's been banned from most places in town.
We don't know what's
Very sad.
going on in Ms. Schulman's life and why she's angry.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we will adjourn the meeting at 9:58.